Welcome to Tom Padula TV and to this last program of the series Intervista Interviews, Series 2. This is program 6, and with the previous program we honour the memory of Peter Petruccelli. In this segment, Nella and I arrive at the home of Peter and Mary Petruccelli, and we are going to enjoy a wonderful afternoon, lunch and conversation and filming. Well, this is Peter Petruccelli's house and property up in here in Upper Beaconsfield Parade. He's quite an artist. There he is. We're cooking pizzas today and having lunch here with Peter and Mary. Peter, you're a fisherman. Look at all the look at all the nets.
They're actually,
I don't believe this.
yeah, some of them are fishermen. Yeah.
Well, this is it. This is the wine we're drinking today.
Oh yes, they were all growing.
Wine in the making.
Away.
I've decided this year that I will interview a few people outside of Teatro Padula, and here I am with Peter Petruccelli in the company of his pizza oven. Look at that. Look at that beautiful pizza place. And we're checking up on the fire. Look at it, the burning fire, getting ready for the pizzas. So what an afternoon. And this is Australia for you. We're in a very relaxing place. In fact, it's so relaxing that I feel like interviewing this young man here.
Oh, yeah.
As an artist, you are a very, individualistic person, and you've told me a little bit about the fact that you come from
Gargano.
From the Gargano region.
Marco in Lamis Foggia.
In San Marco in Lamis Foggia, e ci sono parecchi paesani tuoi qui a Melbourne, e tu sei qui in Upper Beaconsfield, che è nel sobborgo vicino a Berwick, un po' più avanti di Dandenong. Questo qua è il principio di quello che chiamo the Gippsland region.
That's right, East
Gippsland. Yeah. E Peter è un artista che ha cominciato molto tempo fa. Peter began a long time ago, and his story is one that needs to be, will be recounted by many people for many times, because a very talented artist. And he tells me that he began his journey with art in Italy, and you arrived in Australia just before the Olympics.
Yeah, just
1956.
a few months before the Olympics, in 1956. In fact, I had a blue jacket, and the people thought I was part of the Italian team. I said, "Don't I wish?" No, it's just because I had this blue jacket. But I was already working when the Olympic Games came. I was working. I was trying as a house binder, but also church. I used to restore church as a student or apprentice in Italy with lots old artists who some were from Milan, some from Naples, and we restored several church. And I worked for quite a while how to do the technique, tempera, fresco, and all sorts of things of the church. But when I come here, there was no church to restore. So,
I see.
So I went and end up working as a house finder for a while.
And you of course, an artist always tends to be attracted by the art galleries.
Well,
and you went to the National Art Gallery.
Yes, I took my painting with a friend of mine because I couldn't speak much of English in those days. Not because I can now. And the person in charge of the school said, "Yes, you can come to the school straight away after you saw my painting," because I had an exhibition in San Marco where just before I left. In fact, that kind of I sold enough painting to pay my fare back to Australia.
Wow. So an artist who makes money out of his art.
So
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad off at the age of 20, 21. So I come here and I got a job as a house painter, but also I got night class students at the National Gallery, which now it's VCE. They changed the name.
Matriculation was at the time.
VCE, and in those days they were gallery, and you were not getting any certificate or diploma. The National Gallery of Victoria, that's where the best school in Australia used to be. I mean, you're talking Tom Robert, you're talking about all the Australian Adelberg School, Streatham, they all where I come from originally. And some of those, they were teaching there. But of course, when I was teaching there, I had John Brack and Ian Armstrong, which nowadays they're somebody anyway in the art field. They accept me as a student, and then they helped me to say, look, I was a night student. They said, please come daytime if you can, because your work is so good. And so I did go daytime, and I was working part-time during a night shift to get some sort of money for living. In those days, you couldn't get any unemployment or anything like that. And so I spent around 3 to 5 years at the National Gallery.
And at the end of it, you ended up with a scholarship.
I ended up with a scholarship. The scholarship will allow me to go overseas.
To open the doors, but they didn't pay for everything.
No, they didn't pay for those. They just got there and stay a few months if the money would finish. So I went in England, just barely pay the fare to go in England, plus a little bit when I was there, and I got a job in England.
And you were in London? Okay.
In London, yes. I spent 2.5 years.
Where did you stay in London?
In London, I stayed south of London for a while, but I went to do an etching press, which in those days we were doing etching for a little stick to put on a bottle, whatever they call. And then I went to do Morrison Singer, one of the largest foundry in England for bronze, and I learned the technique of the bronze, which I used a little bit later in Rome, in fact. And the technique was quite good, and they paid, 70 shillings an hour, of course, in those days. But nevertheless, I ended up spending 5 years in Europe instead of 6 months.
And because you had the money from England, you ended up in Belgium, you told me before.
Belgium, and I lived a little while in Belgium, a little France. But,
so you went to Paris on a regular basis whilst you were there?
Yeah, every time you were in England, you go by. But also I spent time in Italy, of course, at the academy in Italy.
Well, that was my opportunity to have a lovely conversation and interview with Peter Petruccelli. It'll continue in the next segment. Stay tuned.